Hey everybody, welcome back to another live Q&A with BRStv. I'm Brian and I'm here with Kyle from our Ask BRStv, our Ask BRS social media network. Kyle, how are we doing today?
Doing wonderful.
Great.
It's sunny. Not raining actually.
Not right now, not from in here, but yeah, there are no windows in this room, so I assume you're correct. But
Yes, it's a little dark.
I'm not allowed outside, so I don't know. We're here just to answer any of your reefing questions or just questions in general. If you want to ask Kyle something personal here, feel free.
My history with hockey.
Yep, he's a big hockey player. No, so just reefing questions, anything you want to ask, fire away. We'll start recording these live and try to get through as many as you can, or as we can. But fire away, guys, and let's get on to it. So we'll start out, one of the most common, we've been doing this for a while now. It's been a couple months. We've been doing these weekly live streams. This is actually the first time we've done it at this time. Usually we do it a couple hours earlier, but we kind of bouncing it around, and so try and maybe hit some of those folks, hopefully on the West Coast, that are taking a lunch break around now. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. But one of the most common questions we've gotten recently, I guess, on the Q&As is just about cycling. Yeah. It's huge, right? Most common questions, cycling was right up there on top. Right around like algae removal.
Cycling. Algae, pods.
Cycling, algae, and pods. Like those are some of the top ones. And great questions, right? And so it tells us, one, that there's a lot of new hobbyists out there, which is fantastic. So we definitely want to make sure that we're hitting everybody out there. But so what we wanted to do, just real quick, highlight a couple products that we've got currently, just that you can use for cycling. One's in the past, this is a common one I've used.
I've used this one before.
Yeah, it's a great kit. It's got everything you need.
Yep.
For the dry rock cycling, I guess is if you're not cycling with live rock or any previous media from another tank, because like I said, I like to use like that BioPure, the porous media blocks or whatever. Take a chunk of those, or the little bio balls or whatever, and I use that as a seeding for the bacteria. But if you're not planning on doing that, this sort of starting kit from Brightwell Aquatics is a great way to get your tank going.
Includes everything you need: the ammonia, Microbacter Start.
Yep.
It's really good, and then I think it's also Microbacter 7, right?
Yep.
So you got the basic nitrifying bacteria. Microbacter Clean.
Yeah.
It's Microbacter Clean. Yeah,
it's Clean and Start. XLM.
So you get the nice start with the nitrifying bacteria with that Microbacter Start. You're also going to get the Microbacter Clean, which will help keep your rock clean and help prevent the ugly stage from really setting in too hard, which is really nice.
Yeah, and I find it's got the ammonium in it, and I find that I usually, if I just use one of these or anything, but when I use all these in conjunction, it's like that cycle. The ugly stage hits real fast.
And it goes away real fast.
And it goes away real fast. Yeah. So it's like this works really, really well. So that's a great solution if you're starting up a new tank. Just get yourself one of those. Check them out. We got them on the website. But kind of new, which I think just rolled out yesterday. I think yesterday
on the day or yesterday for us.
On the website. And you've probably seen some of this purple non-sulfur bacteria starting, or cycling stuff happening, or showing up on the, in the hobby. I know Brightwell's got, a product.
They just launched one a couple weeks ago, or like a month ago.
Yeah.
Not too far off.
Yeah. But this is PNS from Hydrospace Deep Cycle, and so what this has got a lot of nitrogen fixing photosynthetic bacteria in it. So these guys are really going to reduce any dissolved organic matter that's in the water. They're going to break that down. They're going to fix that nitrogen into something that can actually be used or filtered out, right? So really cool stuff. There's a bit of reading to do out there that suggests this stuff is just fantastic. It'll actually go symbiotic with a lot of your coral.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I haven't used it yet, but I'm really eager to try this on a new tank just to see if I can see a difference in the cycling process and if it goes any faster, any easier. Maybe even do the aquabiomics test, see how it helps the bacteria population.
Yeah, I've actually got a Nios, like 70 gallon. I just started up. It's about a month in now, and I'm thinking about taking that, throwing that in there just to see how it goes.
If this disappears, I know where it went.
Yeah, exactly. Kyle, gosh.
No one's
anyway, I will say, our tank tech Will was putting some of this into one of our systems over here a little while ago, and be prepared if you get some of this stuff. One, I hear great things. I'm going to try it, but be prepared. It smells horrendous. So just
can't be worse than a skimmer cup.
It was worse.
Oh, really? Dang.
It was worse. Imagine that, but like concentrated. It filled up this whole studio like instantly.
Well, I didn't
So
smell it in my cubicle, so that's all that matters.
you're lucky because we came in here a while ago and we thought something died. I didn't know what it was, and then finally we traced it back to this. So, but it's nice. It doesn't need refrigeration or anything. It lasts for a while in there. It's photosynthetic, so the bottles you'll notice the bottles of any of this purple bacteria is going to be clear because it is photosynthetic, so it doesn't want to be in the dark. But yeah, there we go. So check it out. It's a great option maybe for cycling those new tanks. I hear great things. Haven't personally used it, but I'm going to.
Gonna try it out.
Right.
You're doing a whole studio at home, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have
Plenty of opportunity.
I got at least one more tank I'm probably going to set up in there. Then I've got some tanks I'm going to move into that area, which is going to be super fun. But yeah, so kind of getting my home studio all ready to go.
That's
all right.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it. Okay, guys. So anyway, cycling tank, good stuff. Go for it. Looks like we're getting some questions coming in. That's awesome. If you're just now joining us, we're doing live Q&A. Send your questions in. We're going to get to as many as we can. So let's start getting to these guys. And looks like we got Chris Kovacs. He says, I have a smaller reef tank. How close do you really need the water temp of the new tank water to the actual tank water? So I'm assuming you're talking about doing a water change here. That's kind of what I'm picking up here. So if you're doing a water change, it really kind of depends on how big of a water change you're doing, how dramatic that change is going to be. If your water is like 50 degrees, and you go and you do like a 50% water change.
Definitely going to cause an issue.
Yeah, probably going to cause a problem. If it's like a 10, 20% or something along those lines, you're probably okay. If it's not right there, I personally would still want it to be close. Like room temperature.
Room temperature, yeah. Just make sure it's not like fresh out of the RODI system that's been running on cold water. Yeah. I think you're going to be fine, generally speaking.
Yeah. Now, the caveat to this is if you have like a dosing pump set up for automatic water changes, I used to do that, and you're doing like maybe 1,000 mils at a time or whatever it is you're going to do. I never heat the water in that case, but still, it's sitting out in a reservoir, like at room temperature. So room temperature is just kind of a good guideline to go by if you're doing that. But
unless you're doing like 40% or more, I wouldn't really worry too much about the temperature unless it's like drastically lower.
Yeah, for sure. So
regardless of tank size, so it does not matter if you have a nano tank or 300-gallon tank. 40% is like my cutoff before I start worrying about temperature matching really closely.
Yeah, because if you're talking about percentages, it doesn't matter how big it is, right? If you're going to swap out that much water, if it's that much colder, it's going to cause a problem. And if it's that much hotter too, actually, you probably have worse results if you go really, really hot water in there. Yeah. Just keep that in mind.
Boiling.
I may or may not have done that to a poor beta fish in my youth.
Yeah, poor beta. R.I.P. R.I.P.
Yeah. Oops. Sorry, pal. Okay. Stanley Johnson. I have a new 75-gallon to set up. Awesome. I will be moving in about 9 months. Should I wait or set it up now?
Well, this is a double-edged sword.
It really is. Kyle, you seem excited about it. Go for it.
Being that I have moved with tanks before many, many times with my apartment life and being a college student and everything like that, I would say just wait.
Moving tanks is probably like the worst thing in on earth to do. It sucks.
It's going to add a lot of time to your move.
Yeah.
And depending on how much leeway you have in the move between your current place of residence and your new place, if you're have to be out by the 31st and have to be in by the 1st, I wouldn't do it personally. If you have a couple weeks overlap, that's fine.
Now here's what you could do. You've got 9 months, right? I would not set up this tank to be a display. But in 9 months, you could get that thing cycled pretty well. You could get the live rock cycled. Like if you're putting a bunch of dry rock in there, you could get that in there, fill it with water, get that cycling, get that sort of that biological filtration going, and even maybe, you probably get a few corals or maybe even fish. But I wouldn't set it up as a display if I know I'm going to tear this thing down. Like I wouldn't glue a bunch of rock together, and I wouldn't do all this stuff. I probably wouldn't even put sand in it, honestly.
Yeah.
Not if I knew I was going to move it, I just wouldn't mess with that. So maybe put some live rock in there or some dry rock in there. Let it start cycling, and then when you go to move it later on, that part's done, and you can speed up that cycle when you actually set it up in real space. So just something to think about there.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't even go as far as adding any coral or fish, just because
probably
catching the fish
not.
is like devading my existence.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you're going to just take all of that out anyway, like all the rock and everything anyhow, You might be able to get away with it, but your call. You do you.
I mean,
I've moved tanks before, and it doesn't matter whether it's if it's a nano tank, it's not so bad because you just pick the whole thing up and walk with it. But I've moved a 300-gallon tank before, and I would rather burn my house down than move a tank of that size ever again.
Yeah, I would say I've always used the moves as an excuse to do an upgrade. So it's like.
Great idea.
Set it up now.
Now there's a great idea,
120.
Stanley. That's a great idea. You say, look, I got my 75. I'm going to go ahead and get it set up, get my rock cycling, so that when I move into my new home and I get my 180-gallon tank, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. That's one way to look at it.
That sounds like a great solution. Yeah, do that. All right, Steve M. We got a super chat.
I think it's from the same Steve M. that you're about to read the question.
Yeah, I think so. Steve M. Super chat from Steve M. Thank you, bud. Appreciate it. Hey guys, I just put a Real Reef Cup chalice rock I got from BRS and put a 1.5 inch Maxima clam on it. Par measure is 180 to 200 currently. Sound good?
I think so.
Sounds good to me.
I think it sounds just fine.
Yeah. I just did a voiceover for a clam care video the other day. But yeah, your par is good. I mean, they're photosynthetic, so they're going to like just about whatever you give your corals. If your corals are going to be happy, your clam's probably going to be happy there too. And a lot of them are going. It doesn't matter. Some of them live really close to the surface. Some of them live a little deeper down. So
yeah, I was going to say the Maxima can definitely go a little bit higher in the par intensity. I think I haven't had any Maxima clams personally, but from all the research I've done before now, and wanting to get one, you can probably cook it pretty much with SPS lighting.
Yeah, for sure. Depending on where you got it from, they may not be cooking it that hot. So don't
Photoshop it.
Yeah, don't Photoshop it.
They can take a lot of light.
Yeah, they can. I mean, Maximas are going to live up. Most of the Tridacna clams are going to live up on the rockwork, so they're fine in the same light. And often you'll see them like pictures in the wild. You'll see a big Tridacna gigantea, in the middle of like SPS colonies, right?
Yeah.
And, so they love that bright light. What they don't like is a lot of direct flow. So keep that in mind. If you are going to put it up there around your SPS and stuff, they're not going to like it if their mantle's blowing around a lot.
No,
so
just like LPS corals don't like that either.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, no, sounds good. I mean, you can grow SPS at 180 to 200 par too.
Yeah.
I mean, but they can handle a lot more. So, but yeah, Steve M, doing good. All right, what do we got here? Do you want to do one?
Yeah, I think we got Trent caught my attention with his question. I am planning on setting up a Fowler or reef specifically for wrasses is the focus. Christmas wrasses is the one that I really want specifically. How deep of a sand bed should I use?
Great question.
That is an awesome question.
What I love about this question is that I don't think I've ever been asked this question. It's fantastic. I've never heard of anybody saying, I want to set up a reef specifically for wrasses that dig in the sand. I love it. Because I love deep sand beds and I love fish that get down in them. So, sorry, just wanted to interject that.
I also like the question because it shows that you're doing more research and trying to find out what's best for the animal rather than trying to make the animal fit into your
reef. Yeah, Trent, I like your style. Go ahead.
I like it. So it's going to vary depending on species overall, but if we're talking Christmas wrasses, and depending on which species of Christmas wrasse, because there's a couple different ones that go by Christmas wrasse.
Yeah.
But if we're thinking the largest of them, I think it's about 8 inches long. The ornithismus, I think is what the scientific name is for it. I would go at least 3 to 5 inches for those because they're going to be pretty big fish once they get full grown. So you're going to need a little bit deeper sand bed for those. But if you get like the Halichories Claudia is a smaller species, it's only about 5 inches, you could probably get away with 2 to 3 for that one.
I was going to say 4, and that would pretty much cover your full base. So, sounds like we're both on the right track there. So 2 to 5 inches, depending on what you want to get there. So
also, you don't need the whole tank to be that deep. You just need enough area for the fish specifically. So, which
is something I've done in the past when I wanted a deep sand bed for something like maybe I wanted to put a jawfish in there, or I wanted to make sure I had shrimp goby combos in there. I've done like almost a retaining wall with some live rock or base rock, and pile one side high and leave the other side a little low.
Yeah. Do the freshwater aquascaper techniques.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, you can cheat, go for it, or like the drop-off style things. But yeah, I also don't mind the look of a deep sand bed in a tank. I know some people kind of, they don't like that, but I kind of dig it. So, but no, few inches, you should be good with most of the wrasses you're going to choose there. But really cool idea for a tank, love it. John Campbell, my zoas were stretching and closing up when on the sand bed. I moved them from the lower third to the upper third of the tank. Par up there is just above 100. Was that too drastic of a move? I don't think so. I mean, 100 par is definitely something that zoas can handle.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, they can acclimate to handle just about anything. I've seen them grow right next to SPS. Like, hey, I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, I think you're fine. And the stretching, if they're down on the sand bed, if they're actually in the sand bed or like growing on the sand bed, a lot of that stretching and possibly closing up could just be the sand grains moving around them and irritating them, and so they're trying to get above it. So think about that, like that's a possibility. I've seen that before. They just don't like being down in the sand, like on the sand grains. They like a good rock to grow on. There
are not very many corals that actually live normally on the sand bed. Yeah. I think there's like one species I know of, is like the Heliofungia category. Yep. There's only like one that actually lives in the sand. The rest of them are rock settled corals. So
that could be something you try, right? Maybe just glue it to a plug or glue it to a smaller piece of rock and then set that down on the sand where you had it and see if that makes a difference. If it was on a rock or something, then yeah, sure, maybe it wasn't quite getting enough light, but I mean,
100 par is just fine.
100 par is just fine. If it was way below that before, it may have been a little low for it. Yeah, so I think you're okay. Colin says, I'm having trouble with turf algae in my systems, even though my export methods are good and my nutrients have been consistently low. My inverts won't touch it. Any tips? They're nanos, 40 gallons. So he says systems. So he's having turf algae, which I assume you're talking about green hair algae here. Which, it's funny, like as a turf, I actually think it looks kind of cool. No, it doesn't belong in your reef tank. I know, I get it, right? But
I feel like you'd be the one reefer I'd see setting up a tank just for turf algae.
Just for like a rock structure covered in green hair algae blowing, like
neatly trimmed.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Freshwater equivalent.
I'm quirky enough to do that. That would be fun. Okay, so a couple things here. One of our other content creators, Thomas, did a really great Help I Wrecked My Tank episode on green hair algae, so that would be a great one to check out. I've had problems with green hair algae where I didn't want it to be, many times, and I think that's something that I just talked with Kyle from Adaptive Reef earlier about this. But macro or like an algae like a green hair algae growing in your tank where you don't want it, it's considered a nuisance, but that's just because of where it's at, right? It's like a weed is only a weed if you don't want it there, right? Yeah. So in this case, what you need to do is, I guess, outcompete it somewhere, which is going to be kind of tough if you've got a bunch of these 40-gallon setups and they're all separate systems. Isolating or having, say, a refugium or something like that on each one of these might be a bit of a challenge for you. But on the other hand, like if I've had, sorry, I'm kind of wandering here, but in the past when I've had smaller systems that have had a green hair algae problem, honestly, it's like a waiting game.
Yeah.
It seems weird. I almost have to just be like, okay, I'm okay with you for now. And I manually remove some. I work on my water parameters, but honestly, if I try something drastic, it never works.
Usually something else goes bad.
Something else goes wrong.
That's worse than hair algae.
I make something else in my aquarium angry, and then I'm worried about that. So I think the best practice that I've found is, be as patient as you can with it. Just accept it for now, and slowly just remove it. As long as your parameters stay down, right? If you can find a way to outcompete it with some other algae, like in a scrubber or in a refugium, whatever the case may be, great. It can even be turf algae in a refugium. It doesn't matter as long as it's not in your display. But if you can't, just be patient. Sit there, manual removal on that, because I know like snails and stuff, turbo snails, they won't touch that stuff if it's really long.
Yeah, once you're grown out, that's usually where your cleanup crew is not going to touch it.
Yeah, when you rip it off, a lot of times they'll go in there and they'll clean up the bit that you've just torn off, like all the little bits that are hanging around. So it's literally just a patience and elbow grease thing.
Yeah, I would say elbow grease. Good thing is there's a long weekend coming up for most people, so take advantage of it. Get your arms wet. Yep. Start removing some of that.
Yeah, and you don't have to attack all of it at once either, right? You can get in there. Like you see a new tuft appearing, nip him in the bud real quick. But just go in there if you've got a nice big, blanket of this stuff. Just go pull some of it off. Every time you put your arm in the tank for any reason, just grab a
Pull it
tuft
out.
of it and rip it off, and eventually you'll win. My little Hello Reef at home that I've got, as an example, it's an SPS tank, but I had half of it was covered in just really nice, beautiful green hair algae. Looked great, but my SPS didn't like it.
Yeah.
And it was about 4 months to get rid of it. But I just
Patience. Patience is the name of the game in this hobby.
Yep, you just gotta be patient. And one day I just kind of looked in the tank and it was gone. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't even know when it stopped growing, but it just isn't there anymore. So
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I would just say manual removal is my approach, especially in smaller tanks that sounds like you have. And then with that, I would add a little bit more cleanup crew in between that manual removal just to give them an extra edge, because your cleanup crew might be a little thin for what your inputs are. So that will just help discourage any new growth from coming back really rapidly.
there you go.
So,
All right. Kyle, you take the next one.
okay. Robert Sherwin has a good question with fish. I love fish questions personally. How to get a copper band to eat frozen? It's kind of loaded because this is tricky. It's very hit or miss, even for an expert.
And you're gonna get, if you polled everybody in reefing,
You get 100 different answers.
yeah, and everybody's gonna be split in three or four different ways, like that it's possible, it's not possible, or you can do it, or you can't, so that's kind of a loaded question. I'll go ahead and let you try to tackle it.
So the way I've found the best success with copper bands personally, you always starting with one that I see eating something at the fish store, making sure that it's not already thin. So if you're looking at the fish from the head on, it should have a full forehead. It shouldn't be pinched at the forehead or pinched at the bottom. It should be a nice wide profile, so it's not pinched, not really super thin. Despite it being a thin fish, it should still have some fat up there. And if that's the case, that gives you a little bit more time to work with the fish. If it's already pinched, it's probably already too late because it's been starving for a prolonged period of time. So all of the fat reserves that the fish has are pretty much gone.
Yep. And it's stressed, and
yeah.
it's not going to want to take to something that's not familiar with when it's already stressed too. I mean, you're already fighting a losing battle here.
Yeah. So if it is eating at the fish store, hopefully you can get that same food that they're using. Should be pretty easy to convert from there. Even if it's not eating frozen, if it happens to eat pellets like out of the gate, you're set.
Yep.
But if it's not eating anything right now and it's only picking at the rocks, I would try looking at things like live blackworms are probably the highest hit rate I've had. Behind that, I would say clams on the half shell are another really good option where you can just put it in the sand bed so the fish can passively eat throughout the day. Usually that gets their appetite peaked. And if that's still not working, I've also been curious enough where I've like broken off or fried an SPS coral, like a green slimer, let it dry out, so then it's just the skeleton left, and I've like caked frozen food onto the coral, just because it's gonna look like a coral and it's gonna pick.
Has that
curious.
worked?
It has worked.
Yeah.
One of our CS agents, Chad, he does that for
Chad,
orange spot filefish.
Yep.
Is what he does, because
Okay.
they're SPS obligate
Yep.
coralivores, so they'll go after the SPS corals, but he just puts frozen food on there. Eventually gets them to transition to taking it without being
There you go.
pasted on. But
A few options, but I'd add this caveat in here, like a copper band butterfly. One is there are a few fish out there that this goes for, but copper bands are one of them.
yeah,
It's not a novice fish. It's not even an intermediate fish. It's an expert fish. It really is. Or I have a tank that's so big I don't care if this fish eats some of my coral.
yeah, you got a 300 gallon tank, you're
Fine, right? But they're finicky anyway. They are corallivores and almost in a lot of cases obligate, like you said about the filefish. But they're just I don't know, they stress easy. It's just not an easy fish to keep.
Exactly.
Beautiful, yes, but not an easy fish to keep. So I would caution you, just if you're not an expert or haven't kept one before or don't have a lot of experience with a lot of difficult fish, maybe not the one for you. But I loved your tip too about watching it eat in the store. I do this with almost every fish I buy. If I go to a local fish store and I'm actually buying a fish, if it's, with a few exceptions, if it's something I'm spending a fair amount of money on, I ask them to feed it. I almost won't buy a fish until I see a feeding response from it, right?
Yeah.
And if it's got the sunken belly, then they throw food in there and it still doesn't eat, no way.
Yeah.
No way. It's terrible because you kind of almost want to save this fish because you know it's not doing well, but at the same time, you're just throwing your money away at it.
Yeah. So, essentially what I said for selection is just going to start off with getting a healthy fish in the first place. It's going to be your best bet for success across any fish species that you keep. But these more difficult ones, just be ready that your success rate is not going to be 100%.
Nope,
ever.
they're not.
So
They're not. Yeah, and I can guarantee you, people, you see some of these guys out there that have these beautiful, all fish-only tanks and all these amazing fish in them, and even some of these more difficult ones, Moorish idols, copper band butterflies. Those folks have got it figured out, sure, but they went through a learning curve.
yeah, it's probably not the first and only one that they've had of that species.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. It's tough fish. So anyway, good question, Robert. Thanks. Okay, Jonathan Straub. I'm seeing a little plastic and glass seal breakdown on my Seache Voyager Nanos. It's less than 2 years old, he says. Is this caused by the saltwater, UV, or T5s, or both? Do other brands suffer the same issues? So, heavy UV can cause breakdown of plastics and rubbers, right?
Yeah.
Typically, like if you're running this under like T5s through water, you're not getting a lot. Like if this was outside in like direct sunlight and
yeah.
it was dry, especially. I lived in Nevada for a while, and anything you left outside that was plastic basically turned into peanut brittle after like a few months. So probably not any of those things causing it. I would wonder if you're cleaning this regularly, maybe with vinegar.
Yeah, it could be the cleaning solution that's being used. Otherwise, if you have multiple pumps and you're swapping them out between cleanings, I've seen some plastics will break down if they're wet with salt water, and then they're left to dry prolonged periods of time, then they're wet again. It kind of breaks down the plastic pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, you're getting salt. Now, it's getting wet, it's getting out water and salt and everything. Those ions are getting inside that rubber. And then, when it dries, it's going to crystallize. It's going to start breaking things apart. So that's definitely possible. Yeah.
But that said, they are less than 2 years old, and I think these have like a 3 or 5 year warranty on it. So I would highly recommend you reach out to Seache directly. They should be able to help you figure out what's going on and also help get you rectified on your warranty case with it too.
Yeah, so. Seache has five-year warranty. Yeah. So if it's less than 2 years old, breaking down, that was going to be my next thing. Call Seache and get that fixed up.
They're great to work with. So
they are. Yeah, they're super folks, make great products, and they stand behind them. So there you go. But if you are using vinegar, stop that.
Citric acid.
Use citric acid instead. It can't break down the rubber. And it's better because it can denature proteins and break down things that vinegar can't. All right, Justin Jacobs. I'm having a hard time keeping my alk at normal levels. I try to aim for 8, but it's been testing at 5. What do you dose to keep up with corals sucking down alk? Tank is 2 years old. Okay.
Sounds like you're already dosing, so
good man.
Already in the right direction. Yes. I don't know the entire history of what you've been seeing, but I would first check to make sure you don't have that precipitation going on with especially if you're doing 2-part. So first, just check out your sump, areas around your pumps, power heads, heaters. Make sure there's no like film or crust forming, and if you have sand, make sure the sand's not like becoming one giant plate of substrate, and it's individual grains still. Because precipitation is going to keep you from actually getting your alkalinity up, because it's going to just fall out of solution as soon as you dose it.
No, that's especially true if you're dosing, say, a 2-part, and maybe you're doing a calculation to say, okay, I'm at 5, I want to be at 8, I'm going to dose this much to try to get it there, and you're still not reaching it. There may be a precipitation problem going because you're just dumping so much in there, or it's just so high, whatever the case may be, and there's nothing taken out. Now, if you're dosing, let's just say like a daily dose that was recommended on the bottle, and it's not keeping up, or you're just staying at 5, maybe you need to dose a little bit more, right? So that can go either way. So you got to kind of pay attention to that. I mean, I would check if calcium and everything is up where it's supposed to be, pH and everything is fine, but your alkalinity just isn't happening.
Yeah. So if you aren't seeing any signs of precipitation, bump up your daily dosage a little bit, because you don't want to jump from 5 to 8 in one dosage. That's definitely going to lead to some precipitation just because of the sheer amount that you're adding, especially if it's if it's a pH buffering additive. So if you're using like soda ash, that's going to cause a really high pH area and precipitate it all out pretty quickly. So just bump up your dosage for alkalinity a little bit each day, and it should start rising again once you reach over your daily consumption. And then from there, I think you should be pretty good.
Yeah. I agree. Another option, if you're not already, if you've been, say you're using 2-part because it doesn't say, and if you want to comment on what you are using currently, that's fine. But maybe if you're using 2-part, maybe it's time to switch to calc.
Kalkwasser or Alpha Reef
Or
as well.
Reef, one of those. Someone sort of just a one and done type of scenario. Kalkwasser is great for, I mean, it really is maintaining alkalinity. Right?
Yep.
That's the.
It's great at that.
I mean, really, it's like, that's what I pretty much tell people that's what it's used for, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's an alkalinity stabilizer, and it provides these really great benefits of adding calcium and everything, and pH stability to your aquarium, so, yeah.
I love Kalkwasser.
I do too. All right. Triggerfish45, regular on the channel. Thank you, Triggerfish45, for coming back and seeing us again. I've been using the Reef Factory three-part for dosing. Do you know if it's going to continue to be available? You might probably know more of this because you're surfing the social media boards pretty regularly. But you know, there's some big news from Reef Factory recently, which we're not going to touch on too deeply here. But
there's still a lot to be figured out.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of discussion going on behind the scenes of what this looks like for business-wise. But I don't have a firm answer either direction on that. I know we still have some on hand, so as long as we still have it available on the website, that's going to be your best indication that it's still available. If at any point we run out of inventory and don't get any more in, or if you see it go out of stock, you can always call our customer service team. We can give you another update at that time. That's going to be like the best way to get updates on those particular products, or just any product that's not currently in stock, or you want to see if it's going to be available or not. Customer service is going to have a decent answer for you and figuring out where it's at.
perfect. All right.
Good question.
Good question. Yeah, that's it's a lot of unknown stuff about that whole Reef Factory thing. So
Yeah.
we'll just keep our ears open. Go ahead. If you want to read Jenny's question. Jenny.
Sorry,
I'm going to go with
mispronounce
Jenny.
Jenny. I want to say Jenny, but I could be wrong.
Hi, Jenny.
What is a good budget-friendly RODI system I can purchase? An easy detachable one would be ideal. Can't decide if I want to put it under my kitchen sink permanently. This is a wonderful question.
This is, I mean, to me, it's actually a pretty easy one too, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, the BRS.
BRS 4-stage, do the value one. You don't need all the pressure. You don't need the pressure gauge. You don't need the flush valve. Those are all just extra things that are nice to have.
They are
but
nice to
not
have.
Need to have.
They are nice to have. And if you have exceptionally like nasty water, or you're in a place where you've got low pressure, things like that, sometimes they're very handy, but they're not necessary. But yeah, 4-stage value.
75 gallon per day.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect. And it's 2 screws, hangs on it.
One connection. Don't have to connect any other tubing. It's just
one and done. So pretty simple. That's the one I would go with. And they also are probably the cheapest ones out there.
Yeah. And it's what I used when I was in college in an apartment. I just connected it to my sink.
There you go.
When I needed water,
Yep.
disconnected, put it under the sink, stowed it away when I didn't need water. So it was easy to just pull out, make some water, put it back away, all set.
There you go. All right. Easy question. Thank you. All right. King Neb the Great. All hail King Neb. How would you recommend I get rid of Aptasia living deep in a colony of white zombie zoas without harming the zoas? Well, your first option is just to accept that that's where he lives and he's going to stay there forever.
He can be your token Aptasia.
He's your token Aptasia. He's your little buddy now. Yeah, because like I said a while ago, it's only a pest if you don't want him there.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't want him there, and you could consider this poor little fella a pest, and you want to murder him, which I understand, because Kyle, you have a couple token Aptasia in your. Is he still there? The one that's like hanging out on the glass?
Yeah, he's there. I can't get rid
Kyle
of him.
has the easiest Aptasia infestation to
handle.
To like eliminate it, like of all time, and he just lets it stay because there's like one Aptasia just hanging out
front and center,
right there on the bottom, like and he's just like, eh.
I just want to see how big he gets. He's pretty big.
Well, let your water quality drop, and he'll start throwing little friends out all over the place. So
I'm just afraid the second I try touching him, that's when it's all going to break loose.
Yeah,
he's
right.
Like, oh, no.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Ha! More. Yeah, a great way, if anybody's wanting to breed Aptasia, a great way to do that is just like ignore your water quality.
Yeah,
and let
feed
it tank.
A lot of coral foods.
Yeah, a lot of coral foods, let it tank, and those suckers will just go everywhere.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then you can breed Bergia.
You can, yeah. I mean, it's like a 2-in-1 thing. So anyway, how would I recommend you get rid of an Aptasia living deep in a colony of zoas? What do you got, Kyle?
I would say if you're not a shaky hand person, if you have like doctor hands, Frank's F Aptasia is going to be a great way to just target that one single little sucker right in the middle. Just pop in with the F Aptasia. He should be no problem anymore, and your zoas should be just fine. Your zoas will close up when you're doing the treatment just because you're going to sense the movement and chemical imbalance, pH difference right there.
Yeah.
But just inject the Aptasia, your zoa should be just fine. If you have more aptasia in different areas of your tank and just like have a greater infestation, Bergia and nudibranchs would be my go-to. I like the natural predator.
Yep.
Because they get in all the nooks and crannies.
I'll tell you, and Bergia are great, if you've got a lot of aptasia, right? Because they'll find them, they'll kind of sweep across the tank, which it's remarkable to watch because you're just like,
I got a story.
Your aptasia, like, infestation just sort of gets erased across the tank. It's awesome.
I have a little story about that.
Okay, yeah, we'll let you tell it in just a second. So I've always had a lot of good luck with peppermint shrimp. Now, if you've got other fuzzy corals, Seriatopora, Bacilloporas, things like that, bird's nest, they might eat those.
Yeah.
Which I've seen that happen, right? They're just like, ooh, I like these fuzzy polyps too. Zoanthids, they don't usually bother, but they might bother other things. If it's just one, if you can too, if this is like a colony, or if it's on your rock structure, you might be a little bit out of luck, but if this is like a colony, say like at the bottom of your tank or something, maybe you can take that out and just break that colony in half. Or if you've got a lot of them, you might be, whatever, right? You might have to frag out that little section there and, toss out that chunk that has the aptasia on it. They'll fill that space right back in real quick. So
yeah, it'll look better.
Yeah.
Better than ever.
Yeah. So just a couple ideas. What's your Bergia
story? Yeah, so I think it was like 3 years ago now, I had a water box 20 cube that ended up getting completely infested with aptasia. Like there was a couple of coral polyps, my hammer corals in there, but the rest of it was just pure aptasia.
Yeah.
And
sounds
I was like,
beautiful.
It was gorgeous.
Sounds very brown.
The contrast from the corals though that I did have was amazing.
It's like this two green dots in there and then brown everywhere.
Yeah. So had that and I got 5 Bergia.
Yeah.
It was fun watching just the slow movement. It was like a horizon.
It is.
The sun was rising on my tank
like
again.
somebody slowly like shaking an Etch-a-Sketch or something, right? Just like it's just going across. Yeah, it is pretty wild.
But the way I saw 50 nudibranchs after like a couple of weeks was crazy. They were happy.
Yeah, and if they are happy, they are very prolific. They don't mess around. Yeah, it's funny. Aptasia. I had a tank once, and it didn't have a lot in it, but it did have like a few aptasia in it. And I remember my father-in-law come over one day, and he was like, "Oh, I like that one. I was like, that one's really cool. Little aptasia just kind of hanging out."
Oh, that was a freebie.
Yeah, and he did that to like one of my big SPS tanks too, that had like a little like cheapo torch coral in the bottom. He's like, "I like this one." And it's like they'll use great big bright colored SPS colonies, but they're not moving. He liked the ones that was flowy stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. See, non-hobbyists don't like the ones that we spend money on.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, yeah. They'd probably like a green hair algae tank.
Yeah. They would love your tank.
They would. All right, not anymore. I got the hair algae on it. All right. Triggerfish 45 back again. Could y'all do a tank tour video series of BRS employees' home tanks? I don't know. We probably could.
Yeah, we just need to get the time, get everyone's address.
Yeah, everyone's address. I'll just, go jump around. You'll start to see some of mine popping up on some of our videos as I've got my home studio built started setting up pretty much. Mostly new tanks going into that. So, but I think that's a great idea. We've also got a lot of tanks around the office that I think it would be cool to go around and have, folks talk about the tanks, doing like a, MTV Cribs type thing.
Just walk around the office.
People's tanks. Could be fun. But it's not a bad idea. I don't know.
Yeah, we got to do it.
It's a time and resources type thing. So, but I like it. Could be fun. I'm gonna mess that up. Fawaz Al-Shaya. Fawaz Al-Shaya.
Yeah.
Looks right.
I think
Something I have been curious about. If parameters are good, could adding more corals, SPS, help to reduce algae like the stuff that grows on the glass? Essentially, adding something to outcompete. Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like adding a clam to improve your filtration, right? Because it'll do that. So yeah, I mean, technically that will work. People that have really, really densely populated SPS aquariums or just coral tanks in general that now, have now realized that having a little bit of nutrient in there is a good thing, have to dose nitrates and phosphates because they just can't keep up because they are consuming, right?
Yeah, exactly. I would just say you're still going to have a little bit of that film algae regardless. I think it's a sign of a healthy tank if you have like a good little dusting. I think it's just my personal way of just looking at the tank knowing, hey, things are in check. Nutrients aren't super out of control because it's only a I only have to scrape the glass like twice a week. I don't have to scrape it every day.
And algae's good, right? I mean, algae in your aquarium is a good thing. If you think about it, right? So what is pulling nitrates and other nutrients out of the water that lives inside your coral is it's bacteria, it's algae, right? I mean, it's algae. So it's not a bad thing. So just keep that in mind. It's a good thing. And any of the tanks you see online with people's homes and these content creators and stuff, these guys are folks that, I mean, they have days where they go in there and go, whew, I haven't cleaned my tank in a week, and that thing looks nasty. So, you know, they're not always clean. This thing's not always clean.
No, Will does a great job though.
Will does a great job. We pay a guy to clean all the tanks here, so it's kind of not fair. But, you know, you could do that.
Yeah.
You could just do that, pay a guy. I think I suggested that in another video once.
Yeah, tank technician,
Hire
or your
a guy.
local fish store, they might have a service.
Yeah,
Most of them do, so.
love it. Elisa.
You probably saw her.
I did. Elisa, I believe this is the person I shared an elevator ride with at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
4
Elisa,
a.m.
yeah, from Orlando.
I was definitely sleeping at that time.
But, yeah, most people were. But I don't know, some moron that planned my travel, oh, that was me, decided that a 6 a.m. flight sounded great out of Orlando for Reefapalooza. So Elisa said it was awesome meeting you guys at Reefapalooza, and that early morning flight sucked. Glad we made it. I agree, that early morning flight did suck, and I am also glad that we made it. But yeah, we got to, it was Aaron and I, the videographer, we got to meet Elisa, I think on the, if it's the same person I'm thinking of, it was on the elevator on the way down at the hotel. And we were carrying all our camera gear, and she had her adaptive reef, you know, controller board that she got as she won the raffle for. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. But yeah, awesome time. Reefapalooza was awesome. If you haven't been to Reefapalooza before, go check it out. Great times. There's still one in New York.
Yeah, New York's coming up pretty
California.
soon.
Yeah, New York's coming up in June, and I think California's in September.
Yeah, California,
like
August, September,
But
somewhere in there.
awesome shows. Check them out. But yeah, Elisa, good to see you. Adrian Reyes, can you give your take on copepods and amphipods? If UV causes damage to them as far as making them unable to reproduce, and what the best way is to introduce them to your system?
Well, UV is
You go first.
UV is definitely going to hinder your population a little bit. I don't think it's going to be drastically to the point where you're not going to see any.
Right.
Just because, for the most part, the copepods that you see in an established tank aren't pelagic. They're generally rock-dwelling, substrate-dwelling species.
As
They're
opposed to
benthic.
pelagic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So your UV sterilizer is only going to get what's actually in the water column.
Correct.
And if it's not in the water column, it's not going to go through the UV sterilizer, so it's not going to be impacted. So I don't think UV is going to cause like a huge issue with your pod population. But as far as just best way to introduce them, when you do add your copepods to the tank intentionally, so if you go to like Algae Barn and get 4 jars of copepods to add to your tank to start the population initially, just make sure your UV's turned off. Turn off your protein skimmer for like 48 hours is what I generally do. That way the pods can all like settle out of the water that you just poured them into and get into the rock structure, into the substrate. And then you can turn it back on and you should be just fine.
Yeah, 100%. And if you're, you know, unless you have a reason for it, unless there's like an outbreak, like you've got like dinos or something happening in your aquarium, you're trying to deal with a pest of some kind or a you know, a fish parasite, a protozoan of some degree, there's really no sense in running your UV sterilizer all the time, right?
Exactly.
So that can also help too. You can just turn that thing off during parts of the day, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Go run it 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
Run it half the day if you want, you know, and that'll still help you out. But yeah, I mean, if you've got a decent sized system, or at least if you've got, you know, say even an all-in-one where you've got separate compartments where things are happening, and there's, you know, filter substrate, and there's whatever filter media, whatever the case may be. If you've got a sump, I always take like 1/2-inch PVC pipe and cut it into about like 6 to 8 inch sections, and just toss a pile of those like stacked up in my sump. Boom, done. Because you're going to have all your breeders are going to be down there and that stuff.
Yeah, pod hotels too.
Yeah, pod
really
hotels.
compact ones for your all-in-one tanks.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. If you got live rock there and there, I also am a fan of more coarse substrate in my display tank. I like to have a mix.
Yeah.
So I'll have like, you know, fine sand, and then on top I'll sprinkle some like shells and crushed coral and stuff like that. And that gives them all kinds of little hidey holes to hang out in. So you probably doing okay.
I also want to add, for the UV sterilizer to impact an organism that large,
Has to be in there for a while.
it has to be in there for a really long time. If it's going,
If it's like in a pump and just do it,
it's really not going to be impacted the same way like a simple, super simple bacteria cell is going to be, because the chromoplasm is going to be bigger, more complex. So.
Yeah, that's a great call. And the best way to introduce them to your tank is really, again, like we talked about, just provide them with a place to live and breed, right? So
and just turn off those things that would kill them.
Turn off anything that's going to kill them when you add them. Great call. Protein skimmers, pumps, all this stuff, right?
Yep.
Just, add them to your sump, add them to your display tank, let them all find. Turn off lights too, because fish will really enjoy that if you go dumping a bunch of pods into the top of your tank.
I like doing it at nighttime normally, just normal nighttime. That way the fish are already asleep.
There you go. And they're not out there hunting anyway, right? So, add them with the lights off or at nighttime and give them plenty of places to breed and reproduce and be happy. Okay, Adrian Reyes, you got another one here. Touching on kalkwasser, I use Avast maybe, Kalk Stir. How often should you empty the sludge at the bottom from old powder additions, or should you?
So honestly, it depends on how much kalkwasser you're going through. When I had one on my tank, I was cleaning it out every 2 months, just because the sludge was like building up a little bit too much at that point.
Toward the,
just for the amount that I was having to dose. But generally speaking, it's going to depend just as needed, but I would say every 1 to 2 months generally is what I would fall into as a generic guideline if I was going to blankly recommend it.
And is there any problem with doing it more frequently?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Not at all. I think it's just, I like to keep my sump area a little bit cleaner, just so it's not a mess and it means my tank's cleaner.
And then I guess the converse of that, is there any drawback to not doing it?
I mean, eventually there's going to be too much sludge. You're going to have a hard time.
Yeah,
with
if you've
the
got
reactor
sludge
spinning.
and liquid, it's not going to work real quick. So, there you go. Okay, the Reef Man.
I like the name.
It's a great name. Will BRS ship international in the future, directly talking from the UK? So, the Reef Man is in the UK, and he wants to know if we ship internationally in the future directly. Do you know? Because I do not.
I do not at this point.
Great question. It's the first one that stumped us all day.
I know there's been talk for a little bit about how to get things international. From our facility here in Minnesota, there's just a bunch of hurdles I have to get through, with just every country having slightly different requirements. Also just the logistical issue of getting our carriers to go from us to international ports of shipping. So it's been talked about. I just don't know when on the horizon that is. I don't know if that's like we're coming soon, or if that's we're still in the early phase of figuring it out. So I'm not on the right team for that one, unfortunately.
There you go. Me either. We just make videos, and Kyle answers questions online. So I don't know.
Social media. That's
good question. A good option, what you could always do is just jump on a plane, come visit us.
Come say hi.
We're here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so come say hi. And pick up your stuff in person. Getting back on the plane with it might be a problem. Depends on what you're getting.
Yeah. I mean, for now, there is a workaround where you can order you can place an order with BRS. You just have to ship to a U.S. address, so you can use a freight forwarder. The freight forwarder would then take care of the logistical part of getting it from the U.S. to your country. So if you're in the U.K., if you're in France, if you're in Japan, you can freight forward from the U.S. to your place of residence.
There you go. Great solution if it's big stuff.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you, Reef Man. Come back and see us, because I dig your name. Mark Booth. Oh, I feel like this is a question that you've probably gotten on social media before. When's best?
Yeah, that's a good question.
When is the best time to check pH? Lights on or lights off?
Well, depends on what kind of pH answer you're looking for. If you're trying to just get an idea of what your pH is during the day when your corals are actually growing, which I think is the most important time to check it, you'll want to check about the midpoint of your light cycle. So if you check it too early in the light cycle, so say your lights come on at 8 a.m. and you check your pH at 8:30, your pH has not had enough time to boost all the way to what the peak's going to be. The peak's going to be about that midpoint, or like the equivalent of high noon.
Yeah, and anybody that's ran a pH probe in their aquariums before has seen that, right?
Yep, it's up and down.
And it doesn't matter what your dose, you're going to get a little bit.
Yeah.
Right, you just are.
So
I've never seen a flat line.
No. That's some witchery right there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if somebody's doing that, congratulations. Well
Let me
done.
know what you're doing.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, it's not realistic anyway. You're going to get local changes because of algae growth and things like that, even in the ocean. So, but the most important answer, I think, for that question is what is the best time to check your pH? He's absolutely right. So wait till like midday of your light cycle, somewhere in the middle of your light cycle, so everything's. But then the most important thing is the same time, right? Every time you check it, if you're trying to compare it to, if you're trying to create like an understanding of how is my pH fluctuating or is my pH where it needs to be, check at the same time. If you check at noon one day, check at noon next time.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you go and you check at 5 p.m., well, it doesn't matter. Of course, those aren't going to match, right? They're not even going to be close. So you can check your lows, you can check your highs, but always check at the same time.
Exactly. And I would also personally just recommend a pH probe, especially if you...
Yeah, it's the best way to go. I mean, honestly, it's...
Just so you can do a quick check, but I also
The time savings on it.
I also just like having a controller that will log it for me so I can just go back and like check the general trends, make sure it's balancing out, make sure it's like nothing's wrong. So easy fix if you don't already have one is just like the Apex Junior is a really good option for just good monitoring. You get pH plus temperature and the ability to, I think that it comes with sensors as well for like water level leak or something like that.
It does. It comes with a...
I keep getting them confused on which one comes with which, but...
It comes with the low water level sensor and it comes with the
floor one?
The floor one, the contact sensor.
You get a couple benefits.
Yeah, and I run them on my smaller tanks. They're great. And if you can add modules to make it do everything that the big Apex can do. It doesn't come with that. So, all right. So there you go. Ken Dog. Whew. Going to be moving an established JBJ65. Can I keep the sand? Kyle, you want to answer?
Technically yes, but I would say no.
Okay.
I always recommend just changing up the sand between moves just because most people don't clean their sand bed often enough. So you can get a lot of that gunk, sulfur, extra crap you really don't want back in your tank when you move it. Especially when it's disturbed, you're going to release the sulfur and any hydroxide and stuff like that.
That's the caveat, and that's what I was going to say. If you can do it without moving it, like if you can minimize how much you're disturbing the sand, even if you haven't, because I'm not a sand bed siphoner. Straight up, right?
You're not cleaning your litter box?
No. So I'm a you'll be fine type of guy, and it's worked out for me. But if you have a sand bed that you haven't maybe cleaned up enough, if you can move it without disturbing it,
sure.
Then yeah, absolutely, you can 100% keep it, and it's probably great that you do because you've got all that biome in there that you're keeping.
Yeah, but I would only keep it personally for myself if I had like the pristine white sand that looks like it's been siphoned almost
If that's
daily,
your bag, yeah.
Then I would say you're just fine.
Yeah, like this, which is more pristine than my sand beds ever look. So there you go.
Good work, Will.
Do what?
Good work, Will.
Good work, Will. Good job, Will. Again. So you can. What I've done the past two is I will keep some of it to maintain the biological filtration that's present.
Like a cup or something.
Or even just like a third or half of it, and then I'll cover the top layer, or cover it with a top layer of new sand. And that kind of helps trap some of that down. But yeah, I mean, if it's an old sand bed and there's a bunch of nasty stuff growing in it, if you do keep it, you're going to get basically you're going to go through it's going to be quicker, but you're going to go through a cycle.
Yeah.
So expect that big nutrient spike.
Just be ready.
Yep.
I think we got time for one more question. Danielle Fisher, you're the lucky last question for the day.
Congratulations, Danielle, and thank you for joining us today on our Q&A.
Yeah. She says, newbie here, currently cycling my first saltwater tank. I've been doing freshwater all my life. Top 5 beginner corals. Well, welcome to the salty side, first of all.
Welcome aboard, and if all goes well, you'll be here forever. So
you'll never leave.
Yeah.
Always have an aquarium, that's for sure. So top 5 beginner corals. If you were going to pick 5 corals for a new hobbyist.
Brand new hobbyist.
Yes.
Hobbyist.
Never had saltwater in their life.
Never had saltwater, never done any of it. So just to get that, because I think when you're a newbie, I think one of the important things is like you want those easy wins, right?
Yep.
You want to have success because that feels good, right? Trying too fast and failing, that sucks. It puts people off. So, obviously I'm going to probably stay in that softies range. So I'm going to say, you know, a sarcophyte is a good one.
Good.
You know, so sarcophyte or sinularia, something like that, like a leather coral of some kind. Anthelia is obviously a great starter, but it can take over. But again, if this is your first foray in and you just want to kind of get that full experience, I think sometimes finding those like good problems, like, oh, my coral's growing too fast, I gotta get rid of it. Like that's a good problem to have, kind of, you know. So Anthelia and you know, green star polyps can fall into that category as well. So there's 3, I guess. So you
got 3.
Your standard leather, Anthelias, star polyps, GSPs, or the Briarium, the Gorgonians. Yeah. Everybody kind of lumps them together now, even though they're Pachyclavularia, Briarium. Are they different? I don't know.
They're different but the same.
They
different, but
look the same and
they
grow the same. And so those 3. I kind of look behind me here and think about.
Get some inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, zoanthids are always great. But you know, some of the more designer ones now are crazy expensive.
Yeah.
I'd say Palthoa. I don't really like Palthoa that much, honestly. It's super easy to keep. They're a great beginner coral, but
I appreciate them in a unique way.
Yes.
I like them.
Good, we're on the same page here. Yeah. So I've gotten 4, right?
Yeah.
Good 4 there. Oh man. Trying to think of some other. I mean, I'll just go with it. I'll say Xenia. There's another one. How about that?
I think those are good.
Okay. Pretty good ones.
I like those 5.
Those are great beginners.
I would say for your freshwater people, that's going to be equivalent to your Monte Carlo. That just covers everything.
Yep.
For most of those, except for the leather corals.
Yeah.
Those won't take over the entire tank, but
they can. But you just take a pair of scissors and just cut them back. Yeah. So pretty easy.
Yeah.
The other ones require tearing and ripping.
Yeah. So if I was going to pick 5 corals for someone that's never kept a saltwater tank before, I'm a little leery of like the invasive ones just because I feel like that can be like a whole headache.
Like Xenia
like
and
6 months in
and
when you're like,
well,
how do I get rid of it?
And again, I think that's a good thing because it's like, oh, I won. Like I'm doing great. My tank is healthy because these corals are growing so well. So it's like an easy win. But now you've got this other problem to solve. And then later on, if you're like, oh, I've got this Anthelia, what do I do with it? You know, I'm not going to put that in my new display where I want to control what goes in it. So it's kind of like a fun learning. It's like a learning in a good way.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So if I was going to go for my recommendations, I would say zoanthids are up there. Just be careful with fragging, palytoxin, all that.
Yeah. Well, and what I was getting to, and I apologize, I was mentioning like some of those are really expensive. And so if it's a starter coral, like you can kill it and you can throw a lot of money away on zoanthids very quickly.
Okay, my caveat to zoanthids is don't get the super expensive ones, but also don't get the super cheap like $9 ones because the $9 ones tell you that they grow really fast. So they're pretty invasive. So my experience with like Mohawk zoanthids.
Yeah.
My first tank here, someone was like, here, you want these zoanthids? They look really cool.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, same thing with like green Palthoa or even Anthelia, right? Somebody's like, here's a free coral. And you're like, oh, awesome.
I've kept zoanthids, but never had the Mohawks before. I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's a designer. Like they were like the rage at the time. 6 months later, that was the only zoanthid I had left. Like it covered everything else.
You're peeling carpets.
But for zoanthids, I recommend generally looking at like the Rastas, red hornets, and utter chaos are like my top 3 for like a newer hobbyist. They're not super difficult, not super expensive, but also don't just take over right away. Yeah. So I'd go with those. I like Recordia mushrooms.
Oh,
so like the little
bumpy.
You know,
I didn't even think about mushrooms. For some reason, those slipped my mind.
The Recordia
I'm
mushrooms,
obviously a hard coral guy.
Yeah, he is. But those Recordia mushrooms, they're easy, but they're not prolific. They're not going to like take over like some of the Discosoma species do. Someone gave me a frag of a red one. That thing colony doubled every day. It felt like.
Well, it's like I love those like the jawbreakers and some of these really cool mushrooms.
Those go
Discosomas
slow.
that are coming out. Yeah, some of them do, but I mean, even still, like if it settles in and it's happy, like some of those mushrooms are gonna
take over.
They're gonna go nuts.
Yeah. So I get zoas, mushrooms. Leathers are up there for me as well. I think they're underappreciated by experienced hobbyists.
100%.
Personally, I love them, especially a Fiji yellow leather.
Honestly, there's nothing that beats a great big like toadstool that's got the big rippled sides and everything. Like it's a showpiece, man.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got those 3, and then I would also venture into a little bit of the LPS world. I would recommend Blastos and acan or micromussa lords. I think they're easy enough. They're slow growing where you don't really have to worry too much about dosing yet, but they're a way to get your toes in the sand with some stony corals. And
I would definitely go acans over blastos, at least
get the basic blastos, not the raging expensive
yeah, okay.
ones. Those,
again, some acans and blastos can be extraordinarily expensive, but again, you buy some of the basic ones.
Moderately priced.
Moderately priced.
I'm thinking the ones that are like $20 to $40. Like those are typically good. Like they're generally hardy, but not super invasive.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a general rule of thumb that I go by.
Perfect. So there you go. Our top 5 beginner corals. Good stuff to look for. And Danielle, I believe we wish you the best of luck and welcome to the hobby. It's awesome. We're glad you're here. Well, folks, that's going to wrap us up, I think, for the day. Thanks for joining us. We had a great time. Look forward to the next one. And until then, happy reefing.
Happy reefing.